Well, a warm welcome to today's talk. It's Monday the 19th of April and some quite interesting things today actually have cropped up. So let's start off with the UK-India situation. And there'll be some fascinating historical analogies in a minute as well. So anyway, the Prime Minister's cancelled his trip to India. So obviously the right thing to do to carry on in the current circumstance would just be ridiculous. The background to this is that there's this new so-called double mutant in India, and it appears to be basically running rampant through India with huge exponential rates of increase. Part of this, I think, is likely to be due to the increased transmissibility of this new variant. Whether it causes higher morbidity, mortality or not, whether it makes people sicker and more people die, we don't know, but it certainly seems to be spreading through India. So I think we can go from that epidemiological evidence that this is one we want to avoid very strenuously. So cases well over 200,000 a day for 4 days in India. Deaths projected to rise. Actually, that was Sunday's figure in India. Delhi's been just gone into a lockdown for a week after the weekend curfew was judged to be ineffective. Health services are already overwhelmed in parts of India. Now, I've been getting reports from friends and colleagues in India. And it is quite distressing. People are not getting the medical care that they need already. There again, that's often true in India anyway, but it's particularly true at the moment. So already it's not good. Now, Public Health England have said there's 73 cases of the Indian variant in England and 4 in Scotland. Now, there has been some detected in the community. We don't know how many. But if this gets into community spread in the UK, that is a situation we really don't want. Now, bizarrely, I'm going to just report this cognitively because I get annoyed about it. India is not on our red list of countries in the UK. It's not on the red list of countries. Chief Medical Advisor for the NHS Test and Trace, Dr. Susan Hopkins, said UK did not have enough data yet to determine if India should be put on the list. So we're waiting for data. Let's just wait a couple of weeks and then we'll know, won't we? UK Health Security Agency, this is a plea from me. Please intervene now. And I don't normally put exclamation marks, but I put one there today. And this India double mutant has not been classified as a variant of concern, so it's not even a VOC. Now, this is just incredible. The UK authorities are waiting for data. I've ratcheted out my pile of reliable sayings. Are we going to wait till we find out how transmissible this variant is? Are we going to wait to see if it causes more severe illness? Are we going to wait to see if there's immune escape? Are we going to wait to see if there's increased mortality? Now, we don't know any of those things, but we do know it's running rampant through India at the moment with high rates of transmission. And I really think it's time to act now. If we wait, it will be too late. Now, I think this libel saying here goes way back to February, March last year when we were talking about cancelling flights out of China, and that they just carried on. You know, if we'd cancelled the flights out of China, then we wouldn't have had a pandemic. We need to be proactive. You know, this virus hasn't got a brain. This virus is stupid. Human beings have a brain. All the virus wants to do is reproduce. We can outthink it. But that has to involve proactivity. We can't shoot where the virus is. We've got to shoot where the virus will be next week. And why aren't we doing that? Sorry, that did turn out to be a bit of a rant, didn't it? Anyway, there you go. That's my view on that. We need to act now. In fact, why we're flying, why we just can't suspend flights for a short period of time? Why is it so critical that we fly around the world every day, every week? Why can't we just suspend flights for a little while? Now, I was reminded of a PowerPoint I inflicted on my students for many years when we used to introduce the subject of epidemiology. And I'm going to show it to you. So just a little bit of it, because I know PowerPoints can be boring. So this shows the interaction between humans and plague and death over the centuries from one of these medieval woodcuts, which are so expressive. Now, this was probably designed originally, to have sort of a more spiritual implication, but it's got scientific implications as well. Because here's the dead dancing with the living, but the living hold the keys. The living hold the knowledge. You see how clever this is? we have ways to combat disease if we choose to take it. And this is the next slide that I showed. This is the records of a particular parish church with very good records, St Boltworth, without Aldgate, still there, London. And we see that death occurred in spikes because of infectious diseases. This is the lot of humanity throughout the centuries, unfortunately. That dotted line there is the birth rate. The solid line, the spikes, is the death rate. And the particular case study that we then went on to look at was, if I have the technology, I want that one. There you go. Come on. Sorry about this. There we go. The particular one we looked at as a case study, I'm not going to inflict it on you now, but it was cholera, 1854, big severe cholera outbreak with huge loss of life in England in 1854. And that particular cholera pandemic came to the UK from Asia. And this is another woodcut of the time. Now, here we see cholera scything through the Napoleon's forces, I believe that one is. But this one here we see, can you see cholera? This is death. It's got skeleton feet. So cholera is arriving from Asia. And what are the good citizens of England doing? Welcome. Come on in. Humbly acknowledging them, come on in. And why? Because the conditions are appalling. So I don't know, maybe that was overstated a bit, but it's just why are we welcoming disease in when we could just stop flights for a little while? It's anyway. I've made my point. Some details on India. Details on India here. Test positivity rate at the start of April was 2.8%. Test positivity rate 10 days later was 10.3%. I mean, wow, is that an exponential increase? We're dealing with doubling times of a few days here. And basically, we don't know what's going to happen. Okay, we don't know the details of the biochemistry and the proteome and the genomics of the virus. Well, we know it, but we don't know how that's going to affect transmission. But what about the evidence of our eyes here? People seem to have eyes but do not see, ears that do not hear. We don't seem to see the data that's screaming at us to be proactive. And we don't seem to have ears to hear the calls of those that are already suffering. We really need to be more proactive about this. And if only we'd done this last year as well, we wouldn't have had this pandemic in the first place. Case fatality rate seems to be down 1.3 overall from India since March 2020. Now it's 0.87. So there does seem to be a lot of minimally symptomatic and asymptomatic people. But of course, the case fatality rate will rise. Remember, of course, the case fatality rate is way higher than the actual infection fatality rate because we're only picking up a small minority of the number of actual cases, particularly so in the India situation. But we know that might pick up because of the lag effect. But it does seem, because of the very large amounts of minimally symptomatic and asymptomatic people in India, that some of these may, and I stress may, be reinfections. We don't know yet. That's why we need to just be very cautious and be proactive for a little while, and then when the evidence comes, we'll follow it. But for now, we have the evidence of the epidemiology, and that's leading us to stop the travel for a period of time. Hopefully not long. Hopefully the scientific data will come along and say, no, John, you've got this completely wrong. I'll be absolutely delighted, and I'll come on and say, look, my fears about the India mutant and the India situation were completely unjustified. But for now, we should be cautious, I feel. Now, a bit of global contextualization now. New daily confirmed cases per million people. So India, we know the real numbers are way high because of the lack of testing. We've looked at that on previous videos. United States there, unfortunately, flattening out to going up slightly. Then Iran, then Brazil, then Colombia, then Argentina and Turkey. With very, that's the Turkey line, I mean, wow. Very, very rapid growth in Turkey. So that's kind of what's going on in a few trouble spots at the moment. Daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million people. So this is new cases in Europe. So the UK at the bottom, then Spain, then Italy, then Germany, then Belgium, Poland, Netherlands, France and Sweden with the highest number of new cases of large countries in Europe at the moment. So Europe has got a way to go on this, unfortunately. Still a lot of difficulties in Europe. Confirmed COVID-19 cases per million. This is English-speaking countries. So New Zealand, Australia, of course. Barbados, small island of Barbados, kept it fairly low most of the time. Then the United Kingdom. Ireland, I'm glad to see cases are coming down slowly in Ireland, much slower than we would like, of course. United States and Canada remains an area of concern, as indeed does the United States, as we'll see. New daily confirmed COVID-19 cases per million. Israel and the UK, the large countries that are leading the vaccination programs. So what we see there is that the cases are going down and the vaccines are going up. And that's people who've had 2 doses of the vaccine. Now, I was going to show the decline in death in Israel and the United Kingdom, which are both dramatic, but unfortunately, our World in Data wouldn't give it to me this morning. We'll maybe do that for tomorrow. Now, if you want details on India, a very good report there from the Lancet briefing. Very good report there if you want more details. Now, New Zealand and Australia, they've bubbled up, which is nice. First quarantine-free flight from Australia to New Zealand. Great stuff. After 400 days of isolation. So they isolated for 400 days. They had essentially, they had some outbreaks, but it was completely contained. They've had no community spread for ages because they isolated, whereas we didn't, and we have a pandemic. They did isolate, and they did isolate, and they haven't got a pandemic. So well done, Australia and New Zealand, as we look to the antipodes with a very high degree of jealousy, I suppose, and wish we'd been as proactive as you had. Briefly from the States now, Janssen, Johnson & Johnson vaccine, probably going to be lifting the ban on Friday. Pause, not a ban, pause, on Friday. Dr. Fauci, by Friday we should have an answer to whether we're going with it in his sort of fairly conversational style. I would think that we're not going to go beyond Friday in the extension of this pause. Okay, I do not think there will likely be some sort of. So I do think there will likely be some sort of warning or restriction or risk assessment. Remember, all the cases from memory were women 18 to 48. So I would suspect it's probably going to not give this vaccine for the time being to basically premenopausal women. I think it'll likely say, okay, we're going to use it, but be careful under these circumstances. Okay. As we said, that they were the cases that they were concerned about. Late summer, early fall, Dr. Fauci again. FDA and CDC will probably decide on a third booster shot. So is a third dose going to be needed in the US? In the UK, it's looking likely we're going to need a third shot. In the US, I think it's probable a third shot will be decided upon. Expects high school students to be vaccinated by the autumn, fall school term, so high school students this year, and he's expecting elementary school students next year. As of now, just over half of the adults in the US have had at least one dose, which is good. It's going well. 131 million people. As of Sunday, 84 million fully vaccinated. It's going well. Anyone aged 18 is now over. Wow, brilliant. So if you're aged over 18 in the States, get your shot booked. That's what I would do. Dr. Fauci says the US remains in a precarious position, and click on there and you'll see the data that shows that cases are flat to slightly going up. So there we are, some interesting developments from around the world. Now, Dr. Susan Oliver has sent us an update from Australia. I haven't watched it, so we'll watch it together and we'll see what Susan's saying. Thank you, Susan.
This is Susan from Australia with another update. Now, before I start my update, I'd just like to say something that I'm pretty sure most listeners would agree with, and that is, Dr. John, we really appreciate the fact that you continued to do your videos for us, even though it was clear that you really were quite poorly. Everyone would have understood if you had taken a longer break to get yourself better, and we just really appreciate the fact that you chose to soldier on and continue producing your extremely valuable videos. So thank you, Dr. John. Now, today I'm going to be focusing just on the vaccination rollout in Australia, or should I say the lack of vaccination rollout. So we're currently up to 1.5 million vaccinations, which is 5.8% of the total population of Australia. That is a long way below where we were hoping to be at this time. Now, there's lots of reasons for that. And the last few weeks, seriously, the number of experts who have been on TV giving their opinion of why it is, it's just unbelievable. I never knew there were so many experts in Australia. Anyway, I'm not an expert, but I'm going to give you my opinion. Now, we do now have local supply from Melbourne, which is great. That means we can produce our own AstraZeneca vaccines. But the supply isn't quite as high as what we thought it would be. We were planning to have 1 million vaccines per week. We're still, I think, 700, 800,000 vaccines a week at the moment. And the way vaccines are manufactured, they're actually manufactured in cells. And if you work with cells, and I do in my research, they are notoriously unreliable. They don't always do what you want them to do. And I suspect that could be the issue in Europe as well, and why they haven't produced anywhere near as much AstraZeneca vaccine as what they should have. Also, with our local supply, we are diverting some of it to Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste, and that is because those two countries are close neighbours and they both have quite serious COVID problems at the moment, and so it's the right thing to do to give them vaccines. We were really hoping for the European Union to let us have some of the vaccines we'd paid for so we could use them, but as yet, that hasn't happened. But the other issue that has a big impact on our rollout now is the clotting issue, which everyone would know about if you watch Dr. John's channel, because he has done some great videos about it. We've now had in Australia 3 clotting cases that appear to be linked to the AstraZeneca vaccine. 2 of the cases have responded really well to treatment and they're recovering nicely. Sadly, the 3rd case has died. She's a lady who is 48 years old, and it hasn't been definitely confirmed that the vaccine caused her clots, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that she did have quite a few underlying health conditions, one of which was diabetes. Diabetes is a risk factor for clots, but also the clots in her case weren't typical of the syndrome that has been associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine, and that is because she didn't produce any of the antibodies which demonstrate that there has been an immune response which is affecting platelets. But at this stage, they think it's likely, and that is just devastating, obviously for her friends and family. In Australia, it is now recommended that the AstraZeneca vaccine isn't given to people under 50. This lady actually had her vaccine the morning that decision was made. So she had a vaccine, and then the decision was made that it would be only for people over 50. So it's just, if it turns out that the vaccine is definitely the cause for death. It's tragic. But the other effect, the effect of this change with the AstraZeneca vaccine, and of course, if you listen to Dr. John's channel, you know that perhaps it's not really just AstraZeneca, and it could just be a problem with all vaccines. But at the moment in Australia, it's been treated as an issue with the AstraZeneca vaccine. And that means that in terms of rolling out the vaccine, we can't use our local supply for everyone who it was intended to be given to. But also it means that there is, as you'd expect, a lot of vaccine hesitancy now in the community. And I am just now going to play a video of one person in Australia who is eligible to have the vaccine and get her views on it. I'm here with Mrs. Oliver, who just happens to be my mum, and she's an 8-year-old female. So, Mum, have you had your vaccination yet?
No, not yet.
And why haven't you had it yet?
I prefer my own doctor to go to for vaccination, particularly for my husband, because he has other medical issues. I do have I have looked in, and I'm waiting on being asked to attend, when to attend.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you heard on the news about there's been a very small number of people who've had blood clots after they've had the vaccination?
Yes, I have, yes.
And does that concern you at all?
Not for myself, no, but for my husband, possibly.
Mm-hmm. And but sort of balancing it up, knowing that, are you still thinking it would be a good idea for Dad to get the vaccination?
Yes, I do.
And why is that?
Well, because with his health issues, it's more likely if he caught the virus, it could be much worse for him.
So that's the view of a female in her 80s. Unfortunately, in Australia, there is a lot more hesitancy amongst younger people, and I've noticed in conversations it's particularly apparent amongst people in their 50s, and that is completely understandable because people in their 50s are being told the AstraZeneca vaccine is unsafe for people under 50 and they should be taking an alternative vaccine, but if you're over 50 you should take it. And they're thinking, hang on, what happens when you're 50, you know? Why does it change? We're still young, and I'm 56 and I'm convinced I'm still young. Look, I will be taking the AstraZeneca vaccine when I get a chance, which will probably be about June. And there's a number of reasons for that. Obviously, it's called a rare clotting event because it is incredibly rare. We also know from Dr. John's videos the same events do occur at a much higher incidence amongst people who actually catch COVID. At the moment, not many people in Australia have caught COVID, but we will be opening our borders at some stage, and people are going to be at risk to the many, many side effects that can occur when you get COVID, including, sadly, death. So please, Australians, take that into consideration, and please stay safe, everyone. Hello,
Susan, absolutely excellent report as usual. Not much to add to that, really. I did take a couple of days off sick, but I do like to whinge about things as well. So the vaccination programme rolling out in Australia, okay, it's slowly rolling out slowly. And of course, we greatly admire the Australian sacrifice supplying poorer countries round about them, like Papua New Guinea, which we know was really severely affected, and as far as we know, is still severely affected. So Susan and Mum, of course, excellent to get Mum's ideas there. I got a surprise when Mum popped up, so that was excellent. And of course, always good to see Julie the dog in the picture. So appreciate those reports from Australia. So I think that is us for today. Thank you, of course, for watching.